What's going on, people, and welcome back to the channel. So I'm going to do a quick match reaction to the game that finished today at Celtic Park, Trophy Day, the last game of the league season for this year. Celtic won, St Mirren won at Parkhead. Celtic drawing 1-1 with the Paisley side on Trophy Day. It wasn't a great performance by Celtic. It was very, very flat, but it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Today was about James Forrest. James Forrest was fantastic when he came on. Really made a real difference. I thought he was excellent. Really dragged the team back into the game. Fair play to St Mirren. St Mirren defended really well. They stopped the spaces. Celtic found it hard to break through. I didn't think Celtic played great today. I don't know what it was. They were so good against Aberdeen in the week, and obviously they've had a few good games recently, but it went back to sort of that performance we had a few weeks before. We started playing well again. You know, that spell where we were really, really poor. You know, it was a really poor performance, to be honest, by Celtic. It was a meaningless game in terms of a league, but you still want to win games. I thought a lot of players just didn't look up for it. I thought Engels was extremely poor again, and Adam didn't get a lot of service, but he just looked lethargic. Him and Engels need to do more, in my opinion. They laze about a lot. They stroll about and do nothing when they're supposed to, in my opinion. I don't think both of them should start next week. I thought Luke McCowan was excellent when he came on as well. I thought he'd done more than what Arnie Engels did in the whole game when he was on the pitch. But yeah, the game started. St Mirren, as you would expect, were playing very defensive. They had something to play for today. They had an outside chance of getting into the Conference League. They needed to get a result against us, and they needed Dundee United to lose to Aberdeen. Unfortunately for them, it didn't work out that way. Dundee United ended up winning, so they missed out on Europe. And obviously they didn't beat us. So yeah, but yeah, it was a very, very flat game, I think. It wasn't a great spectacle, to be honest. You know, Celtic had a lot of possession. You know, St Mirren weren't really offering much. Nothing really happened in the first half. I can't remember any chances, really, to be honest. And at half-time, it was 0-0. Second half begins. Celtic, as you expect, dominated the ball. They really did. But it was actually St Mirren who got the first opportunity, and they scored. It was really poor from Celtic. Really poor defending by Liam Scales. Liam Scales goes to clear the ball from a Declan John free kick. Declan John played it into the box. Liam Scales goes to clear it, comes out to a Younger. A Younger then hits it past Kasper Schmeichel into the corner. 1-0 to St Mirren. And everybody was a little bit stunned, to be honest. You know, St Mirren, they didn't really offer much, but the first opportunity they got, they scored. It was a good goal by a Younger, but Celtic needs to do more. You know, Carter Vickers and McGregor threw themselves in the way, but they didn't get there in time, and St Mirren were 1-0 up. It was really poor from Celtic, to be honest. Kuhn was really quiet today. Nicholas Kuhn, I didn't think he was good today. He was good last week against Hibs, but he wasn't good today. He came off. James Forrest came on. As soon as James Forrest, Yang and McCowan came on, Celtic started playing a lot better. They really did. Johnny Kenny came on as well at one point. Celtic, should have equalised. Dyson Maeda had a great chance. Maeda was quiet as well today, but he had a great opportunity. James Forrest whipped in some really good balls. He really did rip Declan John, to be honest. Declan John had to go off injured, but Declan John was getting absolutely taken apart by James Forrest when he came on. And Tanser got destroyed by him as well. But yeah, Forrest was just ripping Declan John every time. But yeah, he played in some really good balls into the box. He literally laid one on the plate for Maeda. Maeda should have scored. It was really poor from Maeda. He should have scored, but he didn't. Johnny Kenny then had a great opportunity. He gets away from Alex Gogic. Alex Gogic is a big chap. He's a big defender. But Johnny Kenny, fair play to him, used his strength and speed. Got away from Gogic. Went through, and Zach Hemming made a good save. Johnny Kenny had an opportunity to score there. Had two opportunities. He scored against Aberdeen in the week, but he was really unlucky. Yang had an opportunity. He got played in, and it was saved by Hemming. Celtic really were pushing for the goal. You know, it didn't look like it was going to be their day. You know, we got into the 90th minute, and long and behold, James Forrest, you know, Alistair Johnson gets the ball. You know, it looked like he was going to shoot. Passes it to James Forrest. Forrest hits it straight into the corner past Hemming. 16 consecutive seasons, James Forrest has scored for Celtic now. You know, that's a remarkable achievement. He's been absolutely sensational for Celtic over the years. You know, what a servant he's been. He's our most decorated player now in our history. He's just overtaken Bobby Lennox, who was there today at the game. Lisbon Lion, Bobby Lennox. I think he's one of only a few that are still alive. But yeah, great for James Forrest. You know, it was an amazing moment. He had chances on Wednesday against Aberdeen when he was excellent. He's man of the match. But Celtic got the draw. You know, St Mirren, like I said, played their part. It was just a bit of a boring game, to be honest. You know, St Mirren had something to play for. Celtic didn't. You know, Celtic's focus is on the cup final a week today. So I don't think they played 100%. You know, obviously, you know, you want Celtic to win every game, but you know, I just don't think Celtic were really into this game today. But James Forrest was excellent when he came on. Really made a real difference. McCowan and Yang, was impressed with both of them as well. Yang's really stepped up his game recently. You know, he's been really poor since he joined Celtic, but you know, the last few months of the season he's been excellent. McGowan's just proven everybody wrong. McGowan's just a class player on his day. You know, Brendan Rodgers has a hard decision to make next week with Rio Atarte missing the cup final because of injury. He's got to make a decision. Will he play Bernardo? Will he play McCowan? Because I think Engels and McGregor will both start. I personally wouldn't start Engels. I would play McGowan and Bernardo with McGregor, personally, because I just don't think Engels is doing enough, but that's just my take. I don't think Brendan will do that. As I said, I don't think Adam Eder was good today either. I'd probably drop him and bring in Forrest. You know, Forrest, Kuhn and Maida will be my front three for the final against Aberdeen next week, but it'll probably be Kuhn, Maida and Eder next week. That's probably what Brendan will go with, is tried and tested. That's what he probably will do. But yeah, Celtic, at the end of the game, they raised the league title. You know, it's an excellent achievement. Doesn't matter how many times Celtic win the title. You know, we've won so many trophies over the last 20 years or so. Really good success for Celtic at the moment. You know, we're by far the best team. You know, it's going to take a lot for anybody to stop us. You know, next season, obviously, Rangers will have their takeover. You know, see how that goes. Hearts are getting money invested into their team. Hibs really came back. You know, Hibs had a really poor start to the season. You know, they finished third this year. When it looked like they were going to get relegated at one point. But yeah, but apart from that, Celtic are the best side. You know, all these teams will have their moments, but Celtic, at the end of the day, are the best team. Raised the trophy. You know, Brendan Rodgers, you know, wins it again for Celtic. You know, Celtic deserved winners. You know, they won the league comprehensively in the end. You know, Celtic played the best football. They got off to the season really well. You know, we played some really good football this season. One game to go against Aberdeen next week. It'll be a really interesting game. Obviously, Aberdeen, you know, we played them a couple of days ago. We thrashed them. So, you know, and we've beat them quite heavily a few times this year. You know, we beat them in the other cup. In the League Cup semi-final, beat them 6-0. Dyson Maida scored a hat-trick. So, Jimmy Talene won't want the same thing to happen again at Hampden. The Celtic are huge favourites against Aberdeen a week today. You know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, fantastic end to the season. You know, didn't get the win today, but you can't win all the time. We normally win on Trophy Day, but it just wasn't to be today. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. I'm going to go enjoy the evening and the celebrations and everything. But yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video after the Scottish Cup final a week today. Enjoy your week, Celtic fans. Hail, hail, peace.